Nuclear weapons are humanity's most destructive invention, harnessing the immense energy released from splitting or fusing atoms. These weapons operate on the principles of nuclear fission or fusion, unleashing forces millions of times more powerful than conventional explosives. The sheer scale of their destructive capability is almost unimaginable, with a single detonation capable of wiping out entire populations in seconds. Unlike conventional bombs, a single nuclear warhead can obliterate entire cities and unleash devastation far beyond the initial blast. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 demonstrated the catastrophic consequences, leaving behind cities reduced to rubble and generations affected by radiation. The aftermath includes radioactive fallout, poisoning land and water, and causing long-term health crises. Survivors, known as hibakusha, suffered from radiation sickness, cancers, and genetic damage, while the environment remained hazardous for decades. Even a limited nuclear exchange could trigger a nuclear winter, blocking sunlight with soot and ash, drastically lowering global temperatures. This scenario threatens agriculture, disrupts food supplies, and puts the survival of millions at risk. The United States and Russia control about 90% of the world's nuclear arsenal, making their actions critical to global security. Their stockpiles and policies shape the balance of power and influence the risk of nuclear conflict worldwide. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction, MAD, has so far prevented nuclear war, but it's a fragile peace, dependent on careful diplomacy and communication. Any miscalculation or breakdown in talks could have catastrophic consequences for humanity. Treaties and verification systems have been painstakingly built to limit these arsenals and maintain stability. International inspectors and monitoring technologies play a vital role in ensuring compliance and building trust between nations. Now, with arms control under threat and new technologies emerging, the world faces a new era of uncertainty, one where the future of nuclear weapons and the fate of humanity hang in the balance. The New START Treaty, signed in 2010, marked a pivotal moment in the ongoing efforts to control the world's most destructive weapons. It was the result of months of intense negotiations between the United States and Russia, the two countries that together possess over 90% of the planet's nuclear arsenal. As the last major agreement limiting US and Russian nuclear arsenals, New START set clear boundaries at a time when trust was fragile and the risk of miscalculation was high. The treaty caps each side at 1,550 deployed strategic warheads and 800 deployed and non-deployed delivery systems, including intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched missiles, and heavy bombers. These limits were designed to reduce the threat of a sudden, overwhelming nuclear strike. To ensure compliance, New START established some of the most rigorous verification measures ever implemented. These include on-site inspections, regular data exchanges, and notifications about the movement and status of nuclear forces, all aimed at building mutual confidence and transparency. This openness has been crucial in preventing suspicion and dangerous misunderstandings, allowing both sides to verify that the other is keeping its promises and reducing the risk of accidental escalation. However, in 2023, Russia suspended its participation in inspections, citing rising tensions over the war in Ukraine. This move has eroded the trust and transparency that underpinned the treaty, raising new concerns about the future of arms control. The treaty is set to expire in February 2026. If it is not renewed or replaced, for the first time in decades, there will be no legally binding limits on the world's two largest nuclear arsenals, leaving the door open to unchecked expansion. Many experts warn that this could trigger a dangerous new arms race, as both sides may assume the worst and rapidly build up their nuclear forces, increasing the risk of miscalculation and crisis. With time running out, the world is now racing against the clock to prevent a return to the dark days of unchecked nuclear competition, where fear and uncertainty could once again dominate international relations. The stakes for global security have rarely been higher, and the choices made in the coming months could shape the future of nuclear arms control for generations to come. Amid rising tensions and a climate of deepening mistrust between East and West, President Putin made a surprising offer in September 2025 that caught many off guard. He proposed that, even after the New START treaty expires, Russia and the United States should voluntarily continue to observe its limits for one more year, a move that would, in theory, keep the number of deployed nuclear warheads and launchers in check. This unexpected gesture signals Moscow's stated desire to avoid a dangerous nuclear arms race, even as relations between the two countries have sunk to their lowest point since the Cold War. However, unlike the original treaty, Putin's proposal lacks the binding legal force, detailed verification measures, and on-site inspections that made New START effective and trustworthy for both sides. Without these crucial verification mechanisms, any new arrangement would rest entirely on mutual trust, something that is in very short supply after years of accusations and broken promises. Many analysts interpret this as a calculated strategic maneuver. By appearing to extend an olive branch, Russia can present itself as the reasonable actor on the world stage, even as it continues its controversial policies elsewhere, particularly in Ukraine, where the conflict shows no sign of abating. The proposal also puts significant pressure on Washington to respond, potentially exposing divisions between the United States and its European allies, who may have differing views on how to engage with Moscow. In essence, it's a diplomatic olive branch, but one with clear strings attached, an offer that could shift the balance of international opinion, but also one that comes with risks and uncertainties. As the world watches and waits, the question remains, can this gesture from Moscow truly help stabilize a dangerous and unpredictable situation? Or will it simply add another layer of complexity to an already volatile standoff? President Trump quickly responded to Putin's proposal, telling reporters, "Sounds like a good idea to me." This offhand remark hinted at openness to dialogue, consistent with Trump's stated goal of negotiating new arms deals with Russia and China. His administration is also pursuing a massive missile defense project, the Golden Dome. An interim nuclear cap could buy time for bigger ambitions, but Trump's comment was not a formal policy. Diplomats now face the challenge of turning this informal nod into a real agreement, with details and verification still unresolved. The president's words have opened a door, but the path ahead is fraught with diplomatic and strategic hurdles. The world is watching to see if this opening leads to real progress, or more uncertainty. Putin's proposal isn't just about nuclear limits, it's a bid to reset relations with Washington. Moscow wants formal negotiations, not just informal understandings, to regain diplomatic legitimacy and break its isolation since invading Ukraine. Russia's core demand: the U.S. must halt or reverse military support for Ukraine, especially advanced weapons. For the Kremlin, arms control and the Ukraine conflict are inseparable. By linking nuclear stability to broader security issues, Russia seeks leverage over U.S. policy in Europe. The proposal is a strategic gambit: prevent an arms race, gain recognition, and influence U.S. actions on Ukraine and NATO. Moscow is asking Washington to choose: engage on arms control and accept a new status quo, or risk a future with no nuclear guardrails. The stakes are enormous for both sides. Nuclear talks are unfolding amid the brutal war in Ukraine and escalating U.S.-Russia tensions. U.S. and allies have armed Kyiv and sanctioned Moscow, making cooperation on nuclear issues even harder. Recent Russian drone incursions into NATO airspace have raised fears of accidental conflict. The Trump-Putin summit in Alaska failed to resolve core disputes, leaving mistrust at dangerous levels. For many in the West, negotiating arms control while Russia wages war in Ukraine risks rewarding aggression. The Trump administration faces a dilemma: reduce nuclear risks without abandoning Ukraine or NATO allies. Every move is scrutinized for signs of weakness or division. The challenge is to balance existential nuclear threats with commitments to allies and principles. The margin for error is razor thin. Just as arms control talks gained momentum, Putin issued a stark warning: if the U.S. supplies Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk missiles, relations will collapse. These missiles could strike deep into Russia, including Moscow, a red line for the Kremlin. U.S. officials have confirmed Ukraine's request for Tomahawks, but no decision has been made. Putin's ultimatum forces Washington to weigh supporting Ukraine against risking a total breakdown in nuclear dialogue. The message is clear: Russia won't separate arms control from its security concerns in Ukraine. The White House must now navigate between aiding an ally and managing a nuclear standoff. The stakes: global security and the risk of direct conflict. Every decision could tip the balance. The world stands at a crossroads. The New START treaty is expiring, war rages in Ukraine, and nuclear rhetoric is escalating. Without an agreement, a new arms race looms, raising the risk of miscalculation and catastrophe. Even a temporary deal to maintain nuclear caps would provide stability and keep communication open. But any agreement must balance arms control with support for Ukraine and NATO. Russia must prove its proposal is genuine, not a ploy to divide the West. Deep mistrust makes every step difficult. The choices made by Trump and Putin now will echo for years. The world must choose between managed competition and dangerous rivalry. The outcome will shape global security for a generation. Ultimately, these talks are about more than warhead numbers. They're about preventing nuclear war. The possible end of New START marks a turning point, risking a return to unconstrained nuclear competition. The world watches as Trump and Putin test whether dialogue can avert disaster. An interim cap won't solve the Ukraine war or erase mistrust, but it's a vital step to reduce risk. Even in conflict, leaders must recognize the unique danger of nuclear weapons and act with restraint. Statesmanship now demands engaging adversaries without abandoning allies or principles. In the nuclear age, dialogue is a necessity, not a choice. The safety of millions depends on wise, careful leadership. The decisions made today will define global security for generations.